Hello friends, and welcome back to another video. In this one we are going to clone my own website, as I mentioned in the previous video, which was this YouTube API, and we are using Tailwind CSS for styling and JavaScript for functionality. So let's get started. And in my project folder I have just a logo and my notes, and in the notes I have the URLs from YouTube API. And if you don't know how to get these URLs, which is required for Fetch API, please watch the previous video on YouTube API and how to get these. So let's create an index.html file and get the boilerplate. I will try to keep this video organized and clean and as quick as possible. So let's start with some meta tags. So some comments just to make things organized. We will have some links. We will have scripts, and this is the title. So within the body, we will have navigation. We will have the main content, which will contain the hero section, the portfolio section, coding, gaming, about me, and footer. So that is the structure, and we will go step by step. We will go section by section, because actually the main part of my website, the majority of functionality and work is done on the nav, then these are quite easy to do compared to the nav. So let's just start with navigation. All I want to do to create nav, and within that I will make some comments. So this will be nav bar, and then underneath will be mobile nav container. So the nav bar will be the div, and within the div I will have an a tag, which would be my logo image. So it's the logo, and the alt is logo. And then underneath that, so I will have another div which will contain first the desktop nav items, then it will be nav btn or mobile nav btn, and then theme switcher. So for this one I will have another div with 8 tags in it. So, and these will be anchor tags. So portfolio, and then coding, gaming, about me. So, and this one, when I click on the image, let's refresh this one. When I click on my image, it should actually go to the top of the page. This is too big. Let's give it a width of 100. Okay, so would be navigation, and I will give this ID to the navigation itself. So the desktop nav doesn't need a navigation an ID, but what we need here is for the button, we will have an actual button with the ID of nav-opener, and it just says menu. That's it. There we go. Let me zoom in here a bit at 150. For the theme switcher, another btn with the ID of theme switcher, and it will contain an SVG. And we will bring the SVGs when we start with Tailwind, because we need to, style them. That's it for the nav bar. Again, it's a div right there, right? And this is the nav bar, and we are still within the nav. So the mobile nav container will be another div, which will contain 2 divs. One will be the top section that has the text that just says navigation, and then another button which will contain an SVG, and the ID for this one would be nav closer. Underneath I will have another div which would be just these, repeating these. It's easier to repeat them rather than just to change them with CSS. Okay, so that's pretty much it for now. And there's one more thing regarding the navigation or related to navigation, is the background blur. So if I go to the mobile version of this version of my website like this, so when we click on this one, there is a blur background. So that's just a div above the navigation. We can put it right above the nav bar, for example. We will style it later on. So right up above the nav bar, I would say nav backdrop, and just create a div with nav dash backdrop. So let's format the document. Let's leave it as it is and bring in Tailwind. Let's go to the Tailwind website. There we go. Get started. And I already have a video on how to do this as well, so I will put this in the description. Okay, after we install Tailwind, and you can see it's installed, we just need to initialize the config file, TailwindCSS init, and there we go. This will give us the config file, which we need to say where are the content of the files, which will contain Tailwind CSS classes. So any folder, any file with the extension of JS, and then same root directory index.html. That's it. And I will come back to this when we want to do the dark and light theme. All right. Now let's just start with styling things. Start with navigation itself up there. Okay. So we want to say class fixed top 0 inset x 0. That means left and right 0. So leave it at that for now. I don't want to do anything with this one for now. And the image, which is this a tag. So let's say class block height 10, width 10, rounded full, and overflow hidden. Okay, so I need to, so I forgot, oh, okay. Before I'm doing all of this, I forgot the whole new section on Tailwind. So we actually need to create a folder, call it CSS, and within that, we will create a file, call it input.css, and copy these directives and put it back in here, save it, and now in the terminal say npx tailwindcss input or -i, get that input file we just created, and then output it to the same folder. Let's call it output.css, and then watch it. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna bring this down so we have more space, and in the index.html under the links, I'm just going to link that CSS file we just created. There we go, now it's working. Okay, so on the navbar itself, the navbar container, I'm going to say padding x 6, padding y 4, and flex items center justify between. Now, if we go back to desktop, this one, so this is the desktop we're working on, and I'm zoomed in here 125%. So you can see it goes all the way across. We can actually, I don't want that. So on the body itself, first of all, let's apply some global classes like max width should not be more than 1280 pixel, and the MX should be auto, which means center. And let's give it a text, so a global text color, and I'm going to use zinc category. So zinc 900 as my global text color, and the BG of course is white background. Now this will fix the body. If we go here, let me refresh this one. Oh, because I have nothing in the body, sorry. So actually the reason is I have nothing in the body. So let's add something under the main, just so we have something. And I'm just going to say div lorem 500 words and close it. I just want to have something so we can play around. There we go. And you can see this is not working because it's fixed, right? So in here, so we already applying this on the body, but we need to also apply it on the nav bar, this one, not the nav itself. There we go, it's working. And this will be a container, so we will cover that. Let's give the padding top to the main class padding top 20. Yeah, it will push it down a bit so we can see the navigation. Okay, let's go back to the navigation, and we are still on the nav bar. We are done with the logo. We are done. Desktop, initially it should be hidden, and when we are on a medium or larger screen, we want to set it to flex. So medium means 768 pixel or higher. Okay, so for now, let's talk about the button. Okay, class, I want to give it a height of 10, as same as my logo, padding x6, rounded 3XL, and let's give it a shadow of large, and shadow color should be zinc 900 with the opacity of 5. BG should be zinc 100, and let's give it also a ring of 1. Ring should be zinc 900 with 5% opacity. There we go. Sometimes I need to save 2 times so it works. All right, now I want to apply these classes to the same buttons everywhere, or it's kind of a card thing actually. So I want to apply a custom class here and select the layer components and then apply those classes. So let me grab everything except the height and padding because those are specific. So cut these and add it here. Okay, so I'm making a mistake here. So I forgot to actually give it a name. I'm just going to call it card. So this is like a CSS. So we say dot card and then apply those classes. So There we go. Save it. Back here, I'm just going to apply card. It's the same thing. I also want to give it font medium and hover effect. So when we hover over it, the text should be, let's say, sky 500. So it's kind of a nice blue. Again, save 2 times. All right, there we go. Now we want to apply almost these same classes to this button down here. So I want to say class height 10, width 10, and card. Okay, that would work. Now, when we bring the SVG, we want to make sure it's centered. So we want to say grid, place, items, center. Now, on the wrapper itself, up here, so this is the wrapper of those items. Okay, we want to say class, flex, items, center, and let's give it a gap of 6. Nice. Okay, so I will bring the SVG in a second, but let's go to the desktop version, which is that one. And if I zoom in so we can see this. So we have to hide this one first. We have to hide the menu button, mobile menu. So MD colon hidden, that will go away. Now on this one, we want to say flex, items, center, apply the card class again. Let's give it a gap of 10. Okay, gap of 10. Padding 6, and height should be 10. So of course, let's give it font medium too, like the button font medium for all the A tags in there. So now we want to give it hover effect. So I want to create another custom class here. Let's call it nav-link, and it's just going to be 2 classes, 2 utility classes. Apply padding y2, and on hover text sky 500. That's it. So now I can just multi-select these by holding Alt on my keyboard and say class navlink. Okay, so now we can hover on them. So again, on the mobile version, we don't see it, but this is the mobile, this is the desktop. So now let's do something else. I think let's bring the SVGs. So I have one SVG here, and this should be like a sun icon. So for the SVGs, I'm using this website called Iconware. Iconware, I don't know. So we just want to search sun, and this one, copy the SVG, bring it back here to the project, and format the document. Let's delete some of this. I don't want this part. I don't want width, height, fill, stroke, and stroke width. I don't want the color, and same as the path, I don't want those options. Now we are just getting a circle. Let's use the class and say fill should be none, a stroke should be 2, a stroke color should be zinc 900, and width should be maybe 6, height should be auto, and save it. There we go. Now let's give it a hover effect, and for that, if we say hover, a stroke sky 500. So we're saying a stroke should be a sky 500 when I hover over it, and it works, except if we hover over the button, it doesn't. It only works on the SVG itself. So we want to do that when we hover over the button, and we can apply a group utility class to the parent, and then instead of hover, say group hover. There we go. So now on the button itself also applies that hover effect. So this SVG will be repeated. So again, let's create my SVG class and apply the classes we have here, all of it. If we need to change something, we can go back and forth. Save, don't forget the semicolon, and just here say my dash SVG. All right, so we're good. Let's talk about the mobile nav container. So this container right here. So on the parent itself, I'm just going to apply that card class first so we can see where we're working. Let's give it padding 4, and this should be fixed as well. And inset X should be 6, which is the 6 padding on the nav board. Okay, and let's leave it as that for now. On the div, which is the second div here, we want to say, so that's like a top section, flex, items, center, and justify between. And let's give it padding bottom 2, margin bottom 2, and border bottom, and that's 1 pixel, border zinc 900 and 5% opacity. There it is. On the text, so the navigation text, we want to make sure that's a muted text. Doesn't mean anything. It's just the title text. Zinc maybe 600. think that's cool. What else? Text super duper small, padding Y2 on the button, which is an SVG. We can just copy these things, the SVG, not the button itself, the SVG, and add it here, right? And change this D attribute because that's the icon. So back to icon nowhere. If we search for cancel, we get this icon, copy the SVG, back to the project, and in my notes, I'm just going to paste that. So I will grab the D attribute alone and replace it with the SVG that I copied. So if I save it now, and we get that SVG right there. So on the button itself, again, the hover effect would not work because we need to apply that group effect. So on the button, I want to say class, group, and also give it some padding Y. That's it. There we go. So that's the top section. For the bottom section, I want to say class, flex column, sorry, flex column, and gap 4. And also apply the nav link class to all of this. So class nav link. There we go. Oh, font medium. Don't forget that. So font medium. All right, now let's start talk about the blur effect that should go behind all of this. So let's bring it up. We put it in the navigation. So up top, right? Nav backdrop. Let's give it a class of fixed and oops, sorry, inset 0. That means all around. BG zinc 900 with the opacity of 10. Let's save it. Okay, so you can see it's kind of, let's make it more, so evident so we can see it. And now let's give it a backdrop blur SM. So there we go, it blurs the background. Now we want to make sure this goes behind all of it. So we want to give this the Z index of, let's say, 40. Now it goes down. So for the nav container, which is this one, this one, give it a Z50. Okay, so that's what we want. So we want only this part, even not even that part. Actually, I want the nav. You see here, I'm giving it inset X, but I should give a top 3 because I want it to cover that navigation bar or nav bar. So I think we're good with navigation, and let's check the website version. Okay, we need to hide that one, of course. So this nav container should be hidden, MD hidden on the desktop. So we don't have it. Also, the backdrop. So this is the backdrop. We want to make sure MD is hidden. This is not necessary. This is just for precaution because actually, when with JavaScript, you would be able to open and close it only with JavaScript. So it would be hidden anyway, unless you use JavaScript. But I want to make sure even if something failed, this is not gonna interfere and it just pops up and ruins everything, right? So on desktop we see it, we don't see it, but on mobile we do. Let's make sure we have the IDs and start with JavaScript. So we have the nav backdrop, okay? We have the navigation itself. We have, so we need the nav opener, there we go. We need the theme switcher, which is actually later on for the dark and light mode. So on the nav container, I don't have an ID. So this needs an ID, of course. So I'm going to say ID mobile nav container. All right, let's create a folder and let's call it JS, of course. Within that, let's call another file, navigation.js. And I'm using a different JS file. I'm going to use different JS file. Let's link it first on the top. So under the scripts, I'm going to say script source go to JS, navigation JS, and make sure you add that defer attribute show. It should be parsed in first. And let's see. So let's grab the items. So DOM elements, and let's start with const. Navigation should be document.query selector navigation. I want to repeat this one for the nav backdrop. So we have nav backdrop. We have nav opener. So this should be opener. We have nav closer, and we have the mobile nav container. So mobile nav container. We actually need another thing, but I will add it later. Mobile nav container. All right, so let's make sure we grabbed all of this correctly, and I start by adding some classes actually. Let's go back to HTML. So on the nav backdrop right there, we want to add opacity 0 and invisible. Okay, and let's create a class my transition. Okay, so I'm going to copy this one, go to the CSS custom classes, add that one, my transition, because I want to apply transition so it would be nice and smooth. Apply transition all, duration maybe 300, ease in and out, and that's it. So back to the index.html, I want to copy these three classes, apply it to the container, mobile nav container, because initially it should be hidden or invisible, not hidden. And you know, if we use hidden, the transition would not work. All right, there it is. So back to JS, we want to say take that opener, sorry, nav opener, and add event listener to it. It's a click event, of course. And then what's going to happen? The mobile nav container class list should remove some things. So what do we want to remove? That opacity 0, also invisible. Let's see if this one works. And there it is, it works. So now we have to apply event listener to the nav closer. I'm going to repeat this one and just say nav closer and add it. Instead of removing it, just add it. So this will open it, this will close it. Now I'm going to be repeating this a few times, so I'm just going to make it into a function. So let's make a comment and say mobile nav closer and function, same name, mobile nav closer. I'm not really good at picking names anyway, so what it's going to happen is just going to do this. So let's call this instead of doing that. Okay, so now we want to apply the click outside. So I'm going to copy this, and instead of on the nav closer, I'm going to add the event listener on the document itself, and we need to check for something before closing the nav. So first we want to check if it's not the mobile nav container itself. So mobile nav container dot contains, I'm sorry, we need to pass in the event. So we want to check that the target, it's not on the container itself, and the target that we are clicking is not the same as the nav opener. So I did this before again in another video, so that's what's going to happen. And there we go. So click outside will close it, click on this one will close it. Now clicking on these ones will not close it. We want to do the same, and all we have to do, grab those items and then just do the same thing again. So we know the nav items, these ones, they are within this container and they are A tags. So all we have to do back in navigation, so I'm going to copy paste this one and say mobile nav items instead of container, and then use query selector all, and then grab the A tags. So this will give me all the A tags, and down here I can say mobile nav items dot for each element, add an event listener to each element, which would be a click event, and just again close the nav. So again, we click on any of these, we'll close the nav, and so on. So but now we want to bring in that backdrop when we open. So not only the mobile nav container should remove those classes, we also want to remove those classes from nav backdrop. Okay, so and then if I copy paste this in the closing nav closer, and instead of removing, add it, there we go. Now this comes in, this goes out, and everything works fine. Great, right? So this is it. This is for the navigation, closing and opening part. Let's go back to HTML, just a very tiny tweak. If you want to. On the nav drop, I would add a delay of 75. So that's like a minimum, very small delay. So it would be come in just a millisecond, so 75 millisecond later than the menu. And it's kind of nice, you see. Okay, let's go back to my website. Where is it? So you can see here on the whether on the mobile or desktop, when I scroll, the nav goes away, and then when I go up, it comes back, regardless of where it is. So up, down, 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 up, it comes back in. So let's do that. So in the project, back to navigation.js, I'm going to create a comment here and say hide and show nav based on a scroll. So first, I want to create a variable down here because it's related to this function, and call it last scroll top. So last scroll top should be 0 at first, and then attach window, add event listener, attach an event listener, a scroll event listener. So within that event listener, I'm going to create a const that will be scroll top. Okay, so and equals that equals to window. So we want to get the scroll y, or so the scroll top is equal to scroll y of the window, or the document element dot scroll top. Now we need to check for something. So if statement. So we want to say if a scroll top, which is that const we just created it, is bigger than last scroll top, that is 0 initially, and window scroll y is greater than, let's say, 60 or 70. And I will explain why I create a number there. And so what we want to do, we want to say navigation itself. So we created the navigation up here, right? So the whole navigation bar. We want to go to the class list and replace that top 0 with top 24 minus top 24, which means go up, right? So we want to do that. Else, we want to do the opposite. So replace the top 20, replace the top minus top 24 with top 0. And at the end, we just want to say the last scroll top is equal to a scroll top. Okay, so let's format it, save it. Let's see if it works. So if I'm scrolling down, it's gone after it reaches 70. And then when I go back up, it comes in. There's no transition, so we can again apply on the nav itself, just apply that my transition. VS Code doesn't want to help me. All right, so there we go. It goes away and it comes back in. Let's also give it a background, not on the nav itself, but on the nav bar right here. Let's give it BG Zinc 100. See how it looks. All right, so now we can play around with these things. So on the nav, if we give some padding on the nav, this will push it in. So let's say padding 4. Okay, so it looks like that. And let's apply rounded 3XL. If you want to. These are all preference, but I'm just doing it so it looks like that. There we go. And if we give the background a bit of opacity, let's say, I don't know, 80, 60%, and then apply that backdrop blur, and it looks like that. So there's a blur now. So you can play with this number if you want it to be more visible there. Okay, so let's check the website version. Refresh this one. So there's no scroll here. I just have to zoom in. So now I don't have enough content to scroll, but you kind of see it works. Let's add more content down here. And I'm just going to add another lorem 500. Why not? There we go. So there, that's nice, right? So let me tell you what's going on here about that number. So in the navigation.js, what am I doing? Sorry. In the navigation.js, I'm adding this 70. And because on mobile versions, so go back here, you see like this is, for example, on a mobile, right? And when you scroll with, with your finger, you're scrolling and you scroll to the top like a quick action, this bounces up and down. At least on iPhone, I don't know if it's the same on Android, and it bounces up and it messes up the menu. So menu goes up and down and then disappears. But if you put it 70, it will come in even before it reaches the top. So it will be in. You see, it's not going anywhere until we reach that point. Okay, so that's the navigation. Okay, let's just start with the dark and light theme. Okay, so and this one, I'm going to close the navigation. I'm going to close my notes, so I don't need it. Don't save it. Let's go to Tailwind and just search for dark. And you can see here, let me zoom in a bit. It says here, Tailwind prefers color scheme of CSS media feature by default. So that means if on our, I want to close the nav here so we can work a bit better. I will open it again later. So on the nav, you can see here, on the body, I'm sorry. If I say dark, so this is the directive for saying apply the dark thing, right? When it's dark, what's going to happen? I want the background to be zinc 900. Okay, so that's one. And dark text should be zinc 100, because initially we were saying text should be 900, but when it's dark should be 100, and the BG should be dark. if I save this, bam, it happens because my system preference is dark. So this picks up from the system user system preference, and the theme color of Windows is black, so therefore this is black. So, and if we go back to Tailwind, see they use this dark mode media thing in the config.js. So I'm going to copy this, go back to the project, open Tailwind config.js, and on top of this object, I'm going to paste that. So by default is like this, media. So this is the default. So even if we don't put it there, it's there. Now, if we say class, which means manually, and I saved it, let's wait for rebuild. It goes back to white because now it expects it to be done manually. So let's create a file inside the JS folder. So new file, let's call it theme.js. Just gonna theme switcher or themes, whichever works for you. And let's first of all, let's put it up here. So script source, again within the JS file, and it's themes.js, save it. And let's bring up console. Let's have the console open here if we get any errors. Okay, so I don't need this anymore because we already added up here. Now let's go back to Tailwind, and there is a file here, spaghetti.js, and there's an if statement that will check for something. We can read it by ourselves. So if I paste it here, format it, I'm not saving my document yet. Okay, I want to show you something. So first, this one checks for local storage, the key theme, and the value dark. Let's go to the local storage. So we go to the application tab here, and we have the local storage. Let me make it bigger. So you can see there's no key value in the local storage. So this one says, is there a key that says dark in the local storage? No. So that's false, right? And then it says or, okay. Now this says, is theme in the local storage at all? No. And this is negating it, right? So no. But is the window matches the, this is basically saying, is the system dark? So it matches the preferred color scheme. So this is true. There is no theme in the local storage because this is negating. So this part is true. So this part is false. This part is true. Therefore, it's true because it's an or condition. And because it's true, it's adding the class list dark to the document element. Let's save it. There we go. Again, it turned dark. And if we look at the element document, you can see HTML class dark. All right, that's what we want. Now, if we go back to the application tab and under local storage, let's manually say theme. And we don't even have to add anything because this only looks for dark, nothing else. So if I save it and refresh, it goes back to light. And if I say dark again and refresh, now it's dark again. So that's our premise. That's what we want to work on. And this if statement is what we want. So what I want to do, just add a comment up here, say set theme based on user preference. Okay, so system preference or something like that. Now let's grab DOM elements, and also we want to grab theme switcher icons. So we need to change the icon with JavaScript too, and I will create two consts here. So const moon icon, which would be just a string, and then another const would be sun icon, which would be another string. So we already have the sun in the HTML. So in the navigation, if you scroll down to the SVG, this is the one. Just going to copy the value. Yeah, that's the one. And add it to the sun. For the moon, we can go back to that website icon nowhere and just search for the moon. There it is. And copy the SVG back to the project notes and add it here. Just grab that D value. So it's all the way to here. So cut it, add it to the JS file. So we have the icons, and now let's grab the theme switcher icon button, const theme switcher equals to document.query selector, and so we call the theme switcher. Forgot the pound sign, sorry. Now we also need to grab the icon, and we know the icon is actually the D attribute of the path. So we want to say the same element SVG path, right? So I'm going to copy paste this one, and I want to say theme switcher icon is theme switcher SVG path. Okay, so we are grabbing the icon too. Now, first thing we want to do, we want to set this icon. By the way, we will fix these problems later. We want to set the icon to the right icon. So when it's light like this, it should be a moon icon, and when the page loads, and if it's dark, it should be the sun. So here we are saying add the class dark if this condition is true. And we can also say theme switcher icon, okay, set attribute. So which attribute we want to change? The D attribute. We want to change it to what? So in this case, it's dark, right? So we want the sun icon. And copy this one, add it underneath here, just say moon icon. So let's save it, refresh this one. Of course, this is light and we have the sun. So let's say we want to set it to dark now and refresh. Now this should turn to a moon, but I'm doing something wrong here. So let me see. Okay, so I'm getting the error, and I realized in the index.html, I forgot that attribute, the fair, and we can see now how important that is. So back to the application. So I have the dark theme, it's the sun, right? So the icon is the sun, and this is set by this one. If I delete this one again and refresh, this becomes the moon. That means make it dark and light. Okay, so let's create attach an event listener to the theme switcher. So we want to say theme switcher, add event listener, and within that, basically we want to check for the same thing. We want to check if, and it's better to check for the whole thing. And if this is true, we want to do the same but backwards, because this is a click event, not automatically. So we want to say if this is true, that means the system is not dark, right? So we want to do this same thing. I'm sorry, the system is dark, so we want to do this one. So copy this, so remove the dark, add the moon icon, or I'm sorry, add the sun icon. No, we were right, add the moon icon, and then set the local storage theme to light. And else, so the other way around, so I'm going to copy paste that one. So add the dark. Now, if that's true, add the dark, add the sun icon, and then set this to dark. Let's see if we did this correctly, if I did this correctly. So I'm still getting error, 2 arguments. Sorry, I did something wrong here. Okay, so again, I forgot to type click as the first argument of the event listener. Sorry about that. So, okay. Anyway, let's go to application, not memory, application. And let's delete this one. Let's say this is the first time the user is loading the page. So refresh, it's dark because there's nothing. The sun is there. Click on it, it becomes light, the moon icon appears, and click on it again, it goes dark. So this is working already. So that's what we want. If we check the website version, refresh, and this is the same thing. So we're done with the themes or theme switcher as well. So all we have to do now is play with the classes to fix this dark mode problem. So let's close this one, and what we want to do here, so start from the top. So the nav background is too dark for the dark theme or too light. So let's play around with it. So it's the nav bar. We are saying BG Zinc 140. So when it's dark, I want to say BG Zinc 900, opacity of maybe 10. It's almost invisible, but the blur is gone, is there. So we can say maybe let's change this to 600. So you can play around with this one and set 40. I don't want to get too obsessed about it. All right, we're good. Now let's bring it back. So with the navigation itself, we're on there. So this is the image, right? We don't need to do anything with that. We have the mobile nav button, and this is following this card class. So if we go to card input.css and we go to the card class, we are saying that text should be Zinc 900, right? So when it's dark, we want to say text. I'm sorry, we don't want to change the text because we are changing the text on the body. We just want to say BG Zinc, let's say 700. There we go. So now it's working. And again, it's the background is not really cool. It's not really working for this kind of thing. So we need to change, again, we need to change that around. So if I change this to 900, okay, that's better. I'm going to keep it as it is. So quite evident what it is. So we want to change that. Now for the SVG as well, we want to say when it's dark, the stroke should be Zinc 100. There we go. So click, it's dark, It's light, it's dark, and everything works. Now the menu, everything is good except this navigation. So if you go back to index, the menu container, there it is, and there's the navigation. So all I want to say, dark text zinc 400 maybe. All right, that's good. I'm happy. And also the border is almost invisible. So right now we are saying the border here, zinc 900. All I want to do now, instead of this 900, say 100. So copy this one and say dark border zinc 105. All right, so let's check out the website. On the website, it's already cool because we are using that card custom class, so we don't need to even check anything. All right, so that's navigation. And what else do we need here? I think we are completely done with navigation and dark and light theme. So we are mostly done with the whole website, and you can see it's cool. So let me close the navigation and start with the other sections, which are easier, much easier. So delete this whole div and start with a section. Okay, and within that section, first of all, let me give it a padding x to the main, padding x 6. And with the section, I will have an h3 that would have a class of my heading. This is a custom class which I will apply, and it just says my name, for example. Okay, so there we go. Now let's use this my heading custom class because it will apply to every section heading. My heading, and apply text for Excel text zinc 700 font bold, and let's see how it looks on the dark mode. It's too dark, so we want to say dark text zinc 300 and end that one. Okay, we're cool. Back to the HTML. So on each section I will have a padding y of 20 or even 24. So I want some white space here and there. And underneath that h3 I will have an h1 that says web developer and a br tag, so kind of a break line, and let's say gamer. Not much of a gamer anyway. All right, so this should have some classes too. Text 6XL font black, and that's it. So this one because I'm not applying any text color, it will follow the body, which I'm saying 900, and if it's dark, 100. There we go. Okay, so that's it. That's with the main, with this hero section, which actually this should be up here. My apologies. This main have to go all the way before the footing. So up, so I'm going to copy this, add it to portfolio section, and delete that part. Okay, so change the heading to portfolio. There we go. So now underneath I will have cards. So div, this is the wrapper. So within it I will have a card div. So this is the card that we already know it looks like those buttons. So let's use an h4 and say this is the title, and a p tag with just maybe 15 words, okay, and an a tag which would be external. So we want to say target blank, and you can include the rel attribute to say this is an external link and just say visit, for example. So let's see how it looks. And you can see back in our input, we are giving the card BG link 900. I want to change this to 800, so so we can see it here better. We can play with the nav to make it less, same color. All right, back here on the card itself, I want to give padding Y 8, padding X 4. There we go. On the heading of portfolio, margin bottom 6. The H1 class, I want to say text XL font semi-bold and margin bottom 4. Nothing on the text, but on the target, on the A tag, I want to say class ring 1. Let's give it ring 2 or just 1. Ring 1, and ring should be zinc 900 at first, and if it is dark, ring should be zinc 100. Padding X6, padding Y1, rounded large. There we go. And let's give it a block margin top 4 and width max. So, whoops, not width max, which means max content. There we go. That's our visit button. And actually, I want to give it maybe margin top 6, so it would be the same as the heading. You could include an SVG icon next to it just to make it cooler, look better. But I want to do here, what I want to do, just say on hover, text should be sky 500, and again on hover, ring should be sky 500 too. See if it works. Okay, so the ring doesn't work for me. So the ring only works in the light mode, as you can see here. For the dark, I still have to say, kind of copy this. I don't know why it doesn't work, but for some reason it doesn't. Dark, hover, ring, sky 500. It works now. Okay, so we could copy this and make it into a custom class or kind of a JavaScript, inject with JavaScript if you have different text, kind of dynamically. But there are only two for me, so I'm just gonna copy the whole thing, okay, and add it one more time underneath. And on the parent, I'm going to say grid and grid column 2 unless it is MD. So on the larger screen, it should go side by side like this. Let's give it a gap. I forgot. Gap 6. There we go. That's the portfolio. Now I'm going to copy this whole thing. Okay, I don't want, and go to the coding and add this one here. Close that section, and underneath the heading, this should be coding videos. And I'm going to add a div with the ID of coding dash container. So coding videos will go in here. Okay, so there we go. I'm gonna close this one. Don't need it anymore. And I'm gonna do the same here. I need to provide IDs for these, by the way. So this would be not the hero section, but this should have portfolio because we have anchor tags on these, right? This should be not on the H3, sorry, on this one. ID coding, and I'm gonna copy this for the gaming section and say gaming and gaming, and I think just this one, gaming. All right, so that's it. So we have to place or placeholder to inject things within that. Now we could add a spinner as a loader state right in front of the gaming videos or right in front of the title. So if I say, for example, here on the coding videos, so let's put this in a div, okay? And underneath, I'm just going to copy one of the SVGs I had before. So one of these SVGs, I'm going to copy it. So let's close this again. It's annoying, too much things. And underneath, I'm going to paste that and look for a kind of a loader SVG, kind of a round thing that can be spinning round and round. So you could choose whichever you want. I will pick, I want this one. So just the one line. I don't want the things that have two paths. I don't know if this one has two paths. Okay, this one has two paths, which is kind of yucky. But let's see if I can find one without two paths. Okay, so I picked this puzzle piece and I bring it here. So as you can see, it's a puzzle piece. And I only picked that one because it has one D attribute. I don't want the ones that have multiple paths because I want to keep it simple. So on this div, which contains those two elements, I want to say flex, items center, and not justified, just gap 6. Okay, so we need to remove this margin bottom on the heading, so it would be kind of nice. Maybe just give it 2. All right, now it looks nice. It looks nicely aligned on the desktop as well. There we go. Now we need to spin this one. So I'm going to give this a class of loader. That's a custom class, which we will call, I actually give it an ID. So for now, I'm just going to say animate spin. All right, so you can see it's spinning and it took some time, again, 11 seconds. Sometimes it just doesn't work. All right, but it's spinning now. But we want to just remove this. Let's give it an ID of loader. We want to remove this when the things load, when the videos are ready to be shown. Okay, so, but for now, it's there. So this should be hidden at first. And when we are loading, we will be showing this, and then we will hide it. So I'm going to copy this section here, this SVG section for the coding container, and add it to this container for the gaming. Just change this back to gaming, and the rest is same. Now for the loaders, I want to say this should be two different ones. So gaming loader, because maybe one of them doesn't work and the other one works. Coding. So coding loader and gaming loader. Let's go to make another JS file. Let's call it YouTube, just call it YouTube, yt.js. And let's first, in the head, let's say script source inside the JS file, yt.js, and it should be the fare again, not forget that one. All right, navigation is closed, should be closed now. So in the videos, for the videos of YouTube, all we need to do first, bring the URLs. So I want to make comments, coding videos URL, and I will have gaming videos URL, and I want to say const coding URL, and that would be a string. Another const that says gaming URL, that would be another string. And in the notes, I already have it from the beginning of the video. So copy coding and add it here. And again, for the gaming, copy that one and add it here. So now we have the URLs. We need another one. We need const YouTube prefix for the links. And if we go to any YouTube video like this one, we have a link, right? So it's an individual video. And paste it here. You see, this is the ID of the video, which we will include dynamically. So let's make a comment. It says, and say YouTube URL prefix. Okay, and that's that. Now we need to, of course, use the fetch API to get the data. I mean, I'm going to use the fetch directly first, and I will turn it into a function. So fetch asks for a URL. We want to give it the coding, and then say then, all right, then result should be JSON. So we want the JSON result. Then again, sorry, get the data, and this time we want to just log that data. And let's open the console here. There we go, and close this one. And we are getting the data from, YouTube API. So I have 12 videos in my coding channel. So now we want to inject it inside this wrapper. So let's grab those DOM elements. So again, DOM elements, and we want to say const coding video. Let's just call it container, coding container, which would be document dot query selector, and I don't remember what I called it. So portfolio coding. So we called it coding loader. No, where's the container? Coding container. Grab this one, add it here. I'm going to do the same for gaming. All right, so we have the gaming and coding containers. So let's just start with the coding, and I want to inject those data in it. So what I want to do, use a for each loop and say on the data dot items, because I know it's in the items. For each element, or L for short, grab the coding container and set the inner HTML to plus equal to. Now, what do we want? We need actually a dynamic text. So we want to use template string, and I will use an A tag. So let me create here in the HTML, because it's quite easy. I can get the boilerplate and stuff. You can get autocomplete. So what I want is an A tag, and the href will be dynamic. The target would be blank. Okay, the rel should be external, and the class should have, I want to give it that card class, okay, with the padding of, no, I don't want the padding actually. I want overflow hidden and block, and I will play around with it later on. So within that, I will have a image, which again would be dynamic, and the alt would be thumbnail, for example. Underneath, I will have an h4, again would be dynamic, class font medium, and text large. So let's see, I want to just cut this one and go back to YouTube and paste it here. Now, instead of these things, I'm going to bring those elements dynamically. So I know it's in the items, so each element. So I want the href, so we want the URL of the video. We know how to get this. We already have the YouTube prefix, come on. So YouTube prefix plus concatenate what? Snippet, element is snippet resource ID. So element dot snippet dot resource ID dot video ID. So that is for that. For the image, again, use the $, curly brackets, and say l dot snippet dot thumbnails dot max res. Am I going correctly? So thumbnails, max res, and URL. And I'm just going to copy this whole thing, add it here because it's the same for the title. All right, let's save it, see what happens. So these are the coding videos that are coming through. Of course, we need to now play around with these numbers. So on the H4, I'm going to give it padding X is 4 and padding Y is 6. See how it looks. Okay, so again, it took some time to rebuild it. I don't know why it's taking so much to build, but it's already looking okay. I'm happy. But back to HTML. So on the container, so you see this is the container, right? I'm going to apply some classes. So I'm going to say grid and grid column 2 if it is SM or bigger, and then if it is MD or bigger, then let's say grid column 3. So that means if the screen is higher than 640, make it 2 column. If it's higher than 768, then make it 3, and then stay at that. But at first it's just 1. And let's give it gap. Don't forget that gap thing. I always forget it. Gap 6. There we go. And I will apply some hover effect in a second. I want to give margin bottom to the container right here. Margin bottom 6. So it will push down that. So back to YouTube.js. Let's give this A tag some hover effects. And let's say hover ring. I think the card has a ring 1 and ring 900 yada yada yada. So let's see if I say hover ring sky 500, what happens? See if it works. Yep. And if we go to light mode, still works. All right. So what I want to do in here, we actually need to do the same for the text. So just say hover text sky 500. Now it doesn't work if I hover over this, but we know already how to do this. We just say group hover and apply the group in here. Now it took again a lot of time to rebuild. So I don't know why it's taking so much time, but it's good. Right now it's working. Now we're gonna do the same thing, exact same thing for the gaming channel, but by the way, I'm zoomed in here. It should be like this. This is the default 100%. So we're going to do the same thing for gaming, but we want to change this into a function and bring the loader and all of that. Let's grab the loader first. So remember, we call this coding loader and gaming loader. So in here, I'm going to create a const and say gaming, no, first coding. Coding loader is document like query selector coding, and then the same thing for gaming. Okay, now let's turn this into a function. So I want to say get data from YouTube API. So this would be a function, and let's call it get data and create HTML. I don't know what else to call it. So let's see what is not. So I'm going to move this curly brackets to the end here, and let's see what are the things that are not repeated so we can accept it as a parameter. So the first thing is the URL, of course. There we go. And so I want to change this URL to URL, and we need the container. So the coding container here is specific. So we want to say just container and change this to container. Now, instead of all of this, I can just call that function 2 times. Why am I clicking on that? Sorry. I want to say get data and create HTML. It accepts a URL, which we have the coding URL, and then the coding container. Same thing. We want to say gaming URL and gaming container. So if I save it, go back to website so you can see easier. You can see it's already, both of them are coming. Oh, sorry, forgot to apply these classes. So right here, these classes to the container down here. Okay, so, and margin bottom 6 here too. Sorry about that, but it's working. The point is it's working, and we are getting the videos and the data. Now let's apply some other options here. So I have a console that logs somewhere. I need to delete it. There it is. So first of all, let's deal with that spinner thingy. So we want to show this spinner And then when the data shows up, remove that spinner. We already have the coding loader and gaming loader. So in the beginning of this function, I'm just going to say loader, which will be accepted. Okay, so we want to say loader.class list.remove the hidden. Oops, let's see if it works. But when it's loaded, it's here. So basically here the data is there. So we want to add it here. Okay. And now we need to add the loader here. So we want to say, for this one, we want to say coding loader, and this one say gaming loader. So it will probably, there we go. You see, it was just there, and there we go, it's gone. One more time. There you go. All right, so that works too. I was going to put a set timeout if it was too quick, but we can see it easily. Now, the other thing we need to address is to have an error message in case things go wrong. So right now we are just fetching the data, but we're not doing anything with the catch. Oops. So at the end of the fetch API method down here, so right before that last curly bracket, we want to say catch the error and this callback function. We can log that error for ourselves, just for the backend developer thing. And now we need to grab, so we are here, right? Sorry, we are here. So in the gaming container thing, we want to kind of grab the parent. What is the parent? Is this section, right? And grab the parent and add something to it. Let's do that. So I want to say grab the container. We're already accepting the container, right? And check the parent node and set the inner HTML of that parent node plus equal to, because we don't want to delete anything it's already in there, like delete the title. We don't want to delete the title. We want to say, for example, set again a dynamic href or a tag. So like this, a, and then close the A like this and say, for example, say content not available, please visit the page, and provide the href dynamically again. So we can accept another argument here and call it channel URL. So like that. Okay, so, and I'm gonna put it down here as an href, and we can add the target blank again, and these two, add it here, and we want to make sure that we remove that loader again. So I'm just going to copy loader class list add after the error. So because we know it's an error anyway, it's not loading, it's an error. So now again for these two, we will accept a URL. Let's grab URL, for example, from my channel. If I go to this one and copy and bring it back down here, just add it here. This one of them is learning, the other one is my gaming, for example. So now let's see. If I save it, it spins, works, everything works fine. Let's see if I make a mistake here. So both of them, I'm going to miss these URLs. Now we're getting content not available. Please visit the YouTube direct page. And if I click on it, it goes to my page. So you can also apply some classes to this, of course. So on the A tag, where we are right now, let's grab the class from the section portfolio, because we have buttons here, these ones. So I just want to grab this whole thing, copy, and then in the YouTube, and I don't know if I, let's say class, there we go. Let's see how it looks. I don't want the max content. I just want text center. That's nice. Let's give it padding Y2. All right, now it works. So if there is an error, this is going to happen. If there is no error, which means the links are good, save it. We have a spinner and then comes in the data. We're good. That's it. So, and that's another big part, which we are done with it. Now the last, almost just a few parts left. So I'm going to close everything extra, close, close, about me section. So let's open, let's see what we have here, portfolio section. Just a second. I want to copy this. Under the about me, let's close that section, and this should be about, padding Y, this should be about me. And let's see what I have on my website. Actually, I forgot. Nothing special, I guess. Just about me, some text and icons. I think this is just basically you know what to do already. So we want to add a p tag, lorem, let's say 50 words. And underneath of this, I want to add a div, which will contain some button SVGs. And for that, I'm going to grab from the nav the theme switcher button. So I'm just going to copy it Imagine this, you were doing this with Vue.js or something like that, that you could make dynamic uh, elements instead of repeating yourself so many times, just like this. But we don't have it anyway. So on the parent, I want to say Plex items center gap 6. That's it. So button, I don't want the ID. In fact, I don't want a button. I want an A tag. So this should be A, and this should be A. And let's say href. It goes somewhere. It doesn't have to go somewhere any right now. If I save it, I get the sun right now. But let's give it margin top of 8, and we can bring some icons if you want to. We can just, but again, that's up to you. I was going to use this CSS loaders, but I used an icon, so I'm going to close this one anyway. So we can bring the code, for example, this one, copy SVG back to the notes again. Do this, grab the D thing, copy. Again, you know already what to do with this one, so I don't want to waste your time. There we go. And you can repeat this and as much as you want. Some of this, just one quick thing, some of these, let's go to game. Some of these have two paths. So I want to copy this one just to show you. Maybe you know this already. YouTube, we're done, close it, and text. So you see this one has two paths. So if I copy this A tag right here and paste it underneath, so what I want to do actually I said actually so many times, D, so there is one D element here, cut it and add it here. This will only give me the dots you can see here. And what I want to do is to copy this path and go back to the notes and grab the other D element, which is quite long. This one, cut it, back here, and paste it. Now it works. So if there was some elements have two paths, make sure you do that and you get the right way. So let me change this one. Okay, keeps going back up there. All right, the last section is footer and the background. We're still not done. Sorry about that. So all I want here is just a p tag that says, for example, your website, XYZ, and maybe a small tag that shows the copyright thing. So if I go back to my website, down here I have this kind of a text, right? And nothing important, it's just about commercial use, but you want to add it down here. Instead of this icon, you can say ampersand for copyright, copy, and semicolon. That's it. And again, we are down here. So all I want to say, can say padding Y12, flex, items center, justify between, and there we go, padding, don't forget the padding x6, and on the text we can make this quite mute, so it's say text zinc 400. Okay, I'm going to close the console and I'm going to just look around here some of the things. This should be on mobile. Okay, there we go. So mobile works, close, open, this works. So we can, now a few things here. So this, you can see when we switch over to sections, it's not smooth. What we can do in the input, we don't need to really do something special. Just say HTML, oh, not as a class, the HTML itself, and say scroll behavior should be smooth. That'll do it. So if I go to coding, you can see now it's smoothly go up and down. So, and the image should take us to the top. Navigation. Oh, it doesn't, because the navigation is already top. So instead of giving the ID navigation here and or just on the menu, let's see. So on the nav, we are saying when we click on the image, if I can find it, it says go to navigation. So instead of this, I'm just going to say top and give the ID top to the top of my hero section, because that would stay there. So for example, the section, there we go. Just want to say top. So if I click on the image, now I'm going back to the top. Okay, let's bring in the background. So you can see I have a background here. And if I light and dark, and I forgot these separators, this is also easy. So I'm going to do these two things. So the separator lines and the background. For background, I'm using CSS background pattern. So if we choose dots, for example, and just play around with these, and then this will give us this right here, right? And we have cross dots, that is 2. So I'm going to choose this one and copy this because I have already what I want. So I'm just going to copy this one. I put this link in the description again, and into the CSS all the way down there. So I'm just going to have a class, call it BG pattern, and I'm going to paste it. So let's format this one. So background image is the radial gradient, and I'm going to change this to RGBA. So I want to say RGBA, and the values, this is for the light theme. So 15, 23, I already picked these values, it just works quite nice. And 0.1 for opacity, and this one should be 1.5, the not too big. This is actually going to be repeated. So I'm just going to repeat this RGBA transparent 0 pixel. I think this is 0 pixel. Yeah, this whole thing. I'm going to copy it and add it down here because it's the same. All right, the background size, instead of 32, I chose 30 pixel. This background position 0, 0, and then 15, 15 instead of 16. Again, these are, you can play. And for this color, I used, if we go back to Tailwind CSS colors, and we have Zinc 100, for example, that one, I want that one. So I can just paste that one in. Now, we need to actually apply it in our HTML. So above everything, so I'm going to go all the way up. I'm going to close the head for a second. We are still not with the head though. And the more I think about it, we're not that much done. Okay, so in the body, I'm going to create a comment and say background, and it should be a div that has a class of bg pattern. Okay, and it should be fixed, should be inset 0, and it should have a minus z index of 50. So we want to make sure it's behind everything. And this is for the light mode, and you can see it's already there. So for the dark theme, going back to input, I'm going to close this one, I don't need it anymore. So back to the input CSS, I'm going to copy this because we need to do it manually, and just say bg pattern dash dark. And instead of these colors, right? So the main color should be Zinc 900. Copy that one, add it here. And these, if we keep it as it is, save it, and go back to index, and we need to apply it here. So we say when it's dark, bg pattern dark should be applied. So okay, so if we click, it's not really visible, so we need to change these values because they are dark anyway. So instead of all of this, I just want to say down here, sorry. So we want to change this to 255, 255, 255, which is white. There we go. So it took some time to load, but now it's dark and we have the background, and now it's light, we have the background. So that's with the background. We're done. Let's do the separators. So that's also easy. So I'm gonna call it separators. I don't know if separators. I think it's like this. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Separators, and this we can just do with Tailwind. So the width of that div, which will apply in sections, would be full. The height should be just 1 pixel. And I'm going to use a bg gradient to right. So from Zinc 100 opacity of 0, this doesn't matter because it's opacity of 0, right? From Zinc opacity 0 via Zinc 940 to Zinc 100 0 again. To Zinc 100 0 again. And this is for the light mode. For the dark, we want to repeat this and just add the dark attribute or things utility class behind it, and say from Zinc 100 to via Zinc 100 because it's dark to that, and then I can't see. So you see right now it's not gonna work for me because I can't see this 0. Come on. All right, so now apply this separator class to some divs. So right under a portfolio, right here. All right, so if I save it, there we go, there it is. So I'm just going to copy this. That's quite easy, right? Under coding and under gaming, and that's it. There we go. That's one separator. There's one, and there's nothing after above the about me section. All right, so you have it all over. Okay, so I think that's it. So the last part, we're done with the website. So this is the website and everything works fine, light and dark mode, and I hope it's nice. It looks nice for you guys. All I want to do now, it's just something behind the background. It's nothing really related to this, what we have here, and that is in the head. So I'm going to close the body. We want to apply some meta tags. So it's good for SEO. So we have meta tag description that will give you the description of your website. For example, what is this website? Like coding and gaming videos. All right. Another one that would be useful is keywords. This one. So meta tag name keywords, and then so you apply keywords. For example, coding and comma separated, or gaming, and so on. So that's it. And some other meta tags we can use with Open Graph. So Open Graph is this website, and it's just again about metadata and stuff. And if you see, if I copy these, the whole thing, just to show you what's going on, and you can apply these to your website. These will work when you are sharing your website. You know, sometimes you share your website and there's an icon, there's a text on that link that people can see. So, and these are done with meta tags Open Graph. So you see we have the title. What is the title of your website? So my website. What is the type? So this is not necessary because it's just a website. You can delete it. In fact, none of them are necessary. It's just good to have them. So the URL of your website is the URL of your website clearly. So that needs to be done. So it will avoid conflicts. So that's one. Then we can apply an image, and this image you cannot give it a relative source. You should give it an actual URL. So you can copy your logo, for example, to your server and just say like this. For example, I have my logo copied to my server. I can just say my domain / logo.png, for example. Okay, so that would be the image. So those are for the meta tags. And the next or the last thing, I'm going to break this, by the way, so we don't need to watch for Tailwind anymore. So I'm going to press Control C 2 times. And the last thing, we want to actually now prepare Tailwind for optimization, for deployment. And if we go again to Tailwind documentation, and we have it here, optimized for production, all we have to do is to just say this, but we have to actually say where's the input file. Otherwise, our custom classes will not be included. So I'm going to close the HTML because we're done with it too. Actually, no, not done, not quite done. So we have this command npx tailwind -i and -o watch, right? So instead of watch, you can see here, instead of watch, we can just say minify. So --minify. There are external tools we can use too, but minify, it actually works with Tailwind CLI. So now we have, I'm sorry, I ruined the whole thing. So I didn't change the file. Let me turn this back. So I want to say without minifying it, I have the output. Okay, it would be the same again. So my website is the same. But now I don't want to watch it. I want to say, let's call it built. So built.css. Sorry about that. Now the custom classes are there too. And now in the index.html, instead of pointing it out to that output, we just want to say build.css. And you can see I wrote the name incorrectly, so it's forgot the D. But it just to show you it works, it's right there. And if you want to make sure, if you want to just like me and you want to make things perfect, you just go back and just put the D in there and press again. Let it regenerate again. There we go. So now it's minified, and they recommend this because they will delete all those extra ones that we don't use, and it's nice. So all you have to do now, the last part for your own website, all you have to do, just make this whole file, this whole folder into a zip file, and then copy paste it onto your server if it's using cPanel or other servers, and that's it. That's really it. You don't even need this input output. You just need the build CSS, but you need the other ones. So guys, this is it. This is a full website, which is cloning of my own website. I forgot to add font. Forgive me. Just very quick, I'm just going to add the fonts. We know how to do it. So go to Google Fonts, add the variations, select the variations. All right. 7, 8, and 9. And copy these links. Sorry. And under the links, I'm just going to paste it. So for this one, we can easily just go to input.css again because we have the HTML, right? And in here, we can just say font family, Poppins, and Sans. This is actually coming from Google, like this. There are other ways to apply it, but since we're having HTML here, so if I say this one and save it, we can't see it right now because we are using the minified version. So I'm going to regenerate that minified version of our CSS. So let's wait for it in here. There we go. It's already changed. So that's it. That's the font. And this is the website, the light mode and the dark mode. You have the icons and so on. So you get the idea, and you can customize this to your needs. I hope this video has been helpful, and I'm sorry I took so many detours, but this is it, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next one. Bye bye.